Hi again, it's Winifred Davis. As I said, I would be back in a little while. It is now 3:58 a.m. and I'm doing the second part of what was supposed to be just one video, but I didn't realize the other one would turn out to be so long. Now we're going to get into reincarnation and the applications of reincarnation. And at the end of the last video, I did say that we can apply the knowledge of reincarnation, the history of our soul and its journey, to helping us choose our vocations, helping us to explain phobias and fears, relationships, health issues, answer pressing questions, and the like. Now, how did I get into this field of reincarnation? Now, for many decades, I've been writing poetry, actually, for many decades. I started when I was about 6 or 7. And for many decades, I would always question myself about justice and duty. I always, as I would go over my poetry, I would see this theme that would keep popping up. Justice, these two words, justice, duty. Duty to conscience. And so this is what set me out on this journey back in about 1996. And I saw a regression therapist and past life, I should say, regression therapist. And that's when I found out exactly why justice and duty was so important to me. And I was living in a society and there was impending disaster coming, and was on a craft. This was eons ago. And I wanted to there was space for people, but they were not of our class. And the elders said, no, they're not of our class. And I insisted that we should take them, but in the end, I did what my elders wanted, and the craft took off. And well, I guess those people lost their lives. Our craft actually crashed somewhere in what we call Scandinavia now, and I bashed my head on a rock. And the thing is, and I will get to that a little later, that the fontanelle, like babies are born with the fontanelle, this here and back here, the anterior and posterior fontanelles, and they close in any case, both usually close by the time the baby is 18 months old. Sorry about my throat. But in this karmic journey, this lifetime, mine only closed just maybe about 10 years ago, not so long ago. And I will tell you why again and why that is important. Now, for decades, I would also dream of walking through the halls of this university. Decades. I could never figure out what university it was. And at times I thought it looked like the one I went to. I won't name that one because it's not important. I did not know what exactly, where, why am I having this dream over and over and over again? And with the help of my trusted and dear friend, my confidant, who was the most accurate past life reader I have known. And I'll say his name because some of you out there might know him. It's Robert Mashlin, Bob, my dear friend. One day we were having a conversation and I brought that up again, and he said, Aberdeen University. Aberdeen University. He said, yes, Aberdeen University, Scotland. And Well, we figured out why. And from that day, I never had that dream again because I had discovered one of my past lives. Now, that past life is very relevant in this karmic journey that I'm on. The negotiator and peacemaker, biographer, printer, writer, and bishop that I was. I was someone who had died of a broken heart because a whole generation of children were left fatherless because of a war I had advised against, but no one listened. Now, likes and dislikes, phobias and fears. Why do we like a certain animal, a song, a sport, a food? Why do we have an aversion for others? Why will we not go to the deep end of a pool? Or why are we afraid of heights or rats? My favorite animal is the horse. I developed a love for horses in Roman Britannia. I, like many Celtic women during that time, were adept horsewomen. I won't say horsemen. We can recall Boudica, the Celtic queen, the queen of the Celts, who gave the Roman army a run for their money. In that lifetime, no, I wasn't Boudica. I rode a white stallion, and this was in the 4th century AD. In at least 4 of my lifetimes, following that lifetime, I was surrounded by horses. And as I said, as a young man who loved to play with music and just be free and maybe a little too wild, stole a horse and was hanged for it. And I'll just mention the hanging. When I was a little girl, about 5 years old, I had a little, something like a raised thing here, like a little nodule or something. And it worried my grandmother and members of my family, and I'd hear them saying, "Oh my God, I hope it's not cancerous." And one day I just burst out and I said, "No, I was probably hanged in another lifetime. Where did that come from? I don't know, but that's what I said." And the fact of the matter is, I was hanged, not just as the horse thief, but I was hanged at least 2 or 3 times in 2 or 3 other lifetimes. And those 2 or 3 other lifetimes was because of betrayal. Trying to help others, and I was betrayed and hanged. Now, fancy that in this lifetime I should choose to be born in a family, at least a part of a family, that loves horses to death. My maternal grandmother loved horses. She loved all animals, but she loved her horse. She had a horse named Pringle. It was a white stallion, actually, that she would ride without a saddle. Could you imagine that back in those days? And her father loved horses. He had many horses. As a matter of fact, when he got older, and sometimes when he would ride by, you'd have a few people calling him Old Saddle, much to the chagrin of my grandmother. 2 of my sisters also love horses, as did my brother. We might fear the deep end of the pool because we drowned or almost drowned. We might get a cough or feel we are choking when we see certain foods or taste it. I should say a certain food or taste it. It is not a case of allergies. If we check and it's not a case of allergies, if we go back into our soul's history, we might find that we choked on that particular food and died, so we choked to death. If we find that out, that sometimes once we go back all the way into that lifetime, that sometimes helps us to overcome that particular problem. And I'll just add here, if you do go to a regression therapist, a past life regression therapist, make certain that that person knows what they're doing and that they are well qualified, because sometimes if they don't know what they're doing, they could leave you right back in that past life. And that is not a joke. Now, I hate rats. And remember, now I'm using myself as living proof and testament of these facts of the truth that is reincarnation. So it's not that I want to talk about myself, and I would prefer not to. And a lot of what I'm sharing here with you, if I did not have to fulfill my soul, my self-soul contract, I can assure you, nobody would probably know some of them. Now, I hate rats, as I suspect most people do. But that was not always the case in this journey. My brother and I loved animals. And so we had a dog named Snapper, German Shepherd. And it was back in the early 70s, and sometimes you'd let your dog out. Now you have to have a leash. And, well, Snapper came back in one day in pup. She had a litter of 6 puppies. And we traded one of those puppies, what we didn't give away, we traded one of the puppies for a hamster. Because I wanted a hamster, my brother didn't mind having a hamster. And, of course, being of Jamaican parentage, I'm sure my mother, we knew that she would not agree to that, but we got it. My father knew, and all he said was, he said, wait till your mother finds out what you children went and did with the puppy and what you exchanged it for. He said, wait till she finds out. She'll say, rat? A rat as a pet in the house? Anyhow, we had the hamster, and we would put it in the garage because my mom, immigrant parent, did 2 and 3 jobs. Put the cage in the garage, and then one morning we forgot, and it was late. We didn't forget, it was late. We didn't have time, so we stuffed it under the bed. The bed was high off the floor. Lo and behold, it was her day off, and she went under the bed to clean and found this hamster, which she saw as a mouse. When we came home, we were in big trouble, so we had to get rid of the hamster. So I wasn't afraid of a hamster. Wouldn't be afraid of a mouse. But months later, the house next door was sold, and the people who bought the house decided they didn't want all the wood that was in the wood pile for the fireplace that the other owners had. They got rid of the wood pile, and of course that sent the mice scurrying. And it seems as if some got into our house, because I was sitting one day in the living room on a hassock, and I felt something on my foot. And when I looked, it was a little mouse. From that day on, I've been afraid of rats. It wasn't that I used to hold my hamster, so why should a mouse rather, running over my foot make me despise them, be so sensitive to rats and mice? So sensitive that if I come to your house and you have a mice problem, I know. You don't have to tell me. I can sense them. I could even take you to the place where I believe they walk and enter your house. Why is this? It happened when I was tossed in a dungeon somewhere in what we now call Germany, accused of something, betrayed again, and I was sentenced to be executed, hanged. And of course, prisons are not fun places, even in today's world. But imagine back then. And the rats were all over. I contracted what would seem like a lung problem. And that is why, just that mere fact of not knowing what it was, that just the feeling of something running over my foot, it triggered that phobia and that fear. Now, I lost my train of thought there. Another time again, I'm just sticking on the betrayal. And my first betrayal that I can recall in any lifetime involved a war where my husband and I, king and queen, dedicated to our people, were deposed, betrayed by the high priest. And so there was war because he invited another kingdom to come in. And there was war. My husband and I were exiled. We were separated. I was sent eastward to Crete, what we now know as Crete, with one of our children, the youngest one. And he was sent westward to what we now call Morocco with the eldest one. He lived for 40 years and I lived for 30 and never saw each other again. And that's one of the reasons I think, no, not that I think, that I know, wars disturb me. And when there are wars, I hear a war break out, the first thought that comes to my mind is, what about the children? So, as I said before, it's like a therapist taking you back to childhood. When you know the history of your soul, why you have that fear, that traumatic event that might have caused that addiction or other malady. With the history of the soul, we go even further back than childhood. Now, your emotions. Our journey, or I should say our journeys, make us who we are. We might not show emotion, and people think that we are cold and heartless and insensitive. In a past life, perhaps, we showed too much of our emotions And that caused problems for us. In other words, we wore our feelings on our sleeves so that the world could know what we were thinking. To counter that, and because we paid for that, we become reserved. I am like that. I'm breaking out now because I have to, because I need to fulfill my self-soul contract to do some good. I will show my heartbrokenness, as I did in my previous videos. But it has been such that my mother once asked if I knew how to cry. I do what I have to. I am duty bound. And once my conscience and my guides agree, I could be a good soldier. I know that. Because I will do what needs to be done. With the one caveat. If it's against my conscience, I'm not doing it. And in that sense, I would be a lousy soldier. And so I am the one who never sheds a tear at the funeral. I just get along doing what needs to be done. My task is eternal. The task must be done. Vocation. Vocations can become hobbies. I was an historian in several lifetimes in BC and in AD. I traveled extensively during those lifetimes. I am not an historian now, but my experience and love of history is relevant in what I do now. I am a history buff. I write about different aspects of history in a soon to be published, that same book, Thoughts of the Past, and also the history of the soul, because that is what I'm discussing now. The history of the soul. So there's little wonder as to why in between lifetimes I would have chosen to deliver messages on the history of the soul. Proverbs are history lessons, and I've published a book on Jamaican Proverbs. This love for history and my past life experiences as historian and biographer extends to my love and frequent visits to museums, art galleries, and books. I love books. Listening to stories beginning as a little child, barely 2 years old, and asking questions, barely 3. And I'm now the family historian, and have been from a young age, knowing more than what other members much older than I am, and than what they know. And another book, by the way, is on the way with my family history. It's a very, very interesting history. Most histories are interesting, by the way. So I don't mean to, I'm not trying to build myself up. Most histories are important. I wear many hats now, not because I am Jamaican born. You know, they do say that Jamaicans, they always have 1, 2, 3 jobs, 5 jobs. We're hardworking people. And, you know, we want something, so we go after it. In many lifetimes, I have worn many hats. As a bishop, writer, statesman, academic, biographer, printer. I was also very knowledgeable. When I was male then, I was also very knowledgeable about silver and silverware. I was tasked with choosing the silver for the wedding of a queen. A very important wedding. This expertise and love began during my karmic journey in Gujarat, in BCE, along with crystal beads and copper. And today, I still collect silver. If I have copper, I collect that too, and I make silver beads, like these ones. Not this one, but this one. Not silver beads, sorry, crystal beads. I'm very sorry, crystal beads. Let us take the case of a fisherman in another lifetime. That entity might not be a fisherman in this current lifetime, but their hobby might be fishing. They probably enjoy eating fish, living near bodies of water. They might love rowing or sailing. They love the seas and the ocean. They do not mind rivers and lakes. An aquarium, if they cannot be by a body of water, an aquarium might be in their home. Let us take two singers with equal talent. Everything is the same amount of talent. Same beauty or lack thereof. Same determination to succeed. Same promoters, same managers, everything is the same. Yet one succeeds and the other does not. Why is that? The journey of the soul, knowing the journey of the soul and the sole purpose of each of those two singers would let us know that the one who succeeds as the singer, that was the career path in this lifetime that aligns with their soul purpose that they chose in between lifetimes. And the one who doesn't succeed is because it doesn't align with their soul purpose. Prodigies, for example, are doing, prodigies are young people, little children, who they're like, wow, they play the piano like there's no tomorrow. They play any piece on the piano. Or like Frank Frazetta. If you saw his artwork when he was 8 years old, it was astounding. He did a lot of comic art. Because why are they able to do that? Or kids who they consider genius in, say, mathematics, or have a talent in sports, or can sew at a very young age and design. That is because they have done this so many times, done whatever it is they're good at so many times in so many lifetimes. You pick up that guitar and you just know how to play it. Don't know how to read notes, don't know how to read music, but you can play it. Why do we see someone for the first time? This is relationships now. You know nothing about the person, but you have an instant dislike and then, an animosity towards them. That is because you know each other from a past life, and the relationship might have been familial, it might have been business or other. There was disagreement, hopefully, not death. On the other hand, we see someone we have never seen before and we just love them. We trust them. We can communicate quite easily with them. It is as if we have known them all our life. Indeed, you probably have known them as spouse, family, friend, teacher, student, and the list goes on. Sometimes we see someone and a voice whispers, "That's him. That's her." It is as if you have been blindsided, like the rug has been pulled from under your feet. Your whole world is shaken to the core. It would be like you have discovered a golden unicorn, except it is real. Lust might be part of it, of what you're feeling. But something greater than lust is speaking. You will know because you will never have felt anything like it before. You feel as if you are finally home. There's a certain serenity, maturity with the feelings. In this instance, you have probably just met a companion with whom you have shared many lifetimes, many karmic journeys. Some people would say a soulmate or soon to be soulmate. This instance, I should say, like this can happen with relationships that you should avoid. A toxic relationship from past life or two, but not the I will explain further. However, you will not hear that voice that whispers, "That's him, that's her." What I meant by that instance is like you see someone, it's like you've known them before and you like them. But it's not like pulling the rug from under your feet. So you will not feel the rug being pulled out from under your feet. It will be a strong chemical attraction with much lust involved. You can't keep your hands off each other. It is. What would happen is, but as time goes on, the love doesn't grow. It starts to dissipate. That eagerness is just going slowly. The soul's journey will help us avoid these relationships. Once we know our soul's journey, we know whether we should get involved in that relationship or not. Sometimes we are. We know it's not going to last, but we have something to settle, so to speak. Okay? Sometimes we ought not to because it is just plain toxic. And it will only end in disaster, as it did in a previous lifetime. Now, the laws of attraction in physics. Light poles repel, so North Pole and North Pole repel, they pull away from each other. And unlike poles, like North and South, they attract. In the world of the spirits, these laws hold and they don't hold. Spirits of similar, and I like to say affectations of likes, you're alike in your personalities. Similar thoughts are often drawn together, such as we see with spirits on the lower rung of the ladder of soul restoration. Misery, I like to say, loves company. And so that is why we must not engage in negative thought. When the affectation is negative, we need to stay away. Take Bonnie and Clyde and their killing spree, robbery and killing spree. And we'll say, oh, Bonnie was a good girl until she met Clyde. And Clyde was such a good boy until he met Bonnie. No. It was in them. They just needed to get together to make it work. And let's take, for example, ostentatiousness, chaotic spending, the biggest, the brightest, the best, overindulgence, the bright lights, 2 kids. It's like 2 kids in a candy store, and not one to say to the other, perhaps we should not eat so many candies because we're going to end up with a mouth filled with cavities. That was like Bonnie and Clyde. They found a kindred soul, kindred spirit, but except for doing incorrect things. And so it just sort of blooms, right? And let us take the case of Daniel Dancer, the infamous miser who lived in Pinner, Middlesex, England during the 18th century. Now, he inherited the family estate, when his father died. He did not show his miserly ways until his sister came to live with him. They were both of the miserly affectation. Father and grandfather as well were misers. So, born into a family of misers. Now, he took only 1 meal a day, and that consisted of a little baked meat, and often that baked meat was carrying sheep. That means sheep that died and started to rot. And the hard-boiled dumpling. And they prepare that. He and his sister prepare that every Saturday night, and they prepared enough for the whole week. His clothing, get this, consisted mainly of hay bands, which were swathed around his feet for boots and around his body for a coat. But it was his habit to purchase 1 new shirt every year. And after his sister's death, and this was in 1766, he used a fraction of what she left her bequest to buy a second-hand pair of black stockings to put himself in decent mourning. He slept shirtless in a sack, not on a bed, but in a sack, because he said he came shirtless from God, and so was going shirtless. This was when he was sick. He slept shirtless. Let me clarify. And so he was going back to God shirtless. And now, I wondered, did he not come pantsless from God? So why didn't he go back pantsless, right? Some say he even fought the dogs for the bones on his farm so he could boil soup. This man, he lived poor and he died poor. Died rich, sorry. He lived poor and he died rich. All he needed, because remember now, he did not show his miserly ways until his sister came to live with him after his father died. So she shared his parsimony, and that's miserliness. And together, there was not one of them to stop the other. If the traits are positive, then the more the merrier. Although sometimes the two of you can overdo. Like you can be generous, but you might just overdo it. But usually, if the traits are positive, both of you, it's okay. Where there are negative traits, the laws of unlike poles can sometimes work, because sometimes we are attracted to those who are unlike us. And sometimes that is our sole purpose, because we're trying to see how we can best improve ourselves, and sometimes the other party is trying to see how they can help someone improve themselves. So parsimony or miserliness can be balanced by the ostentatiousness, and ostentatiousness can be balanced by parsimony or miserliness. Secrecy can be a good trait, as long as two people who live together do not keep secrets from one another. That's not good in a relationship. And we will discuss. So what I'm saying is, what we will discuss between our on the pillow stays there. You don't keep secrets from each other. But then, what you discuss on or between pillows should stay there. You shouldn't be talking it to other people. Health. Knowing the soul of and its history. Okay, so knowing the history of our soul can explain the exceptions to the rule in health, issues, and cures. And as I explained before, in terms of like cancer, when all things are equal, why does one individual survives and the other one does not? As a matter of fact, maybe most might survive, but few don't. And that is because of the history of the soul or life's purpose, for example. Okay? And those things would be shown in the records, in the Akashic records, which shows you the history of your soul. Now, there might also be spiritual interference as to why, not the history of the soul, but spiritual interference, because believe it or not, it does exist. I know. I've been doing my work, my shamanic work, for more than 35 years, and I know. I have more than a basic knowledge of science in some fields. And I believe in the empiricism of science, that you must prove, you must have evidence. However, I know that science exists within the prison of our senses, hearing, feeling, physical, right? There are things beyond the prison of our senses. And we must be humble enough to know that we do not know everything, and that things are beyond us. The spiritual and traditional healer must also be humble to know when it is the realm of modern medicine to solve a problem. Sometimes the spiritual blocks must be removed for the medical practitioner to see and solve the problem. I know, once again, I've been doing this for more than 35 years, and it's not always a case of belief kills and belief cures or mind over matters. People are superstitious, and there are, of course, indeed, cases of belief kills and belief cures. I have to deal with those cases as well. But there are also cases that are beyond the realm of science. Each of us has a weak spot in the body, as I explained. Sometimes it is said that it is hereditary. Those with weak spots reflect our journeys. Those weak spots reflect our journeys. Sometimes they are the result of abuse of one kind or other involving that particular part of the body. An expiation of a karmic debt, such as a murder, could manifest itself as some form of cancer, with the body taking its own life in a way, because that's what cancer is, right? Your body fighting itself for that life that you took in another lifetime. No, remember, once again, I did not say that all cancer is a result of murder committed by you in a lifetime. I did not say that. I said it could be, but we will never know, and we should never suppose until we have proof. And that is only if one knows the history of that soul. Because we know that there are many reasons, many things that cause cancer, such as parasites, bacterial infection that was never resolved, environmental things, and the list goes on. Abuse, such as not taking care of oneself without proper light, like your eyes, for example, without proper lighting, can result. Alcoholism from another lifetime can result in the liver being fragile in a consequent lifetime. Abuse of self. When we abuse, whether you abuse your eyes by not taking care of it or anything we do, that is also a spiritual mistake. And I'll give you the example of myself. Again, remember, I'm only telling you this because this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I, through many lifetimes, have read a lot, written a lot, and we know well lighting was not exactly the best centuries ago or millennia ago, right? And so my eyes, that's an abuse of your eyes, because I did an awful lot. And so at one point in one lifetime, I was blind when I was very old, and I had to be led by children. And during that lifetime, I was a priest. Come to a lifetime I had, and that ended in the early part of the 1800s. I was called a toothless, blind old man. I was male. Because my teeth were gone and my eyesight was going. Nonetheless, up until when I died at 89, sometimes I'd have people read to me, but I was still reading. That was my favorite, sitting in my library and reading what I could. And so I know that my eyes are my weak spot in this lifetime. I know that my teeth were my weak spot. And believe me, when I was a little girl, I always had problems with my teeth. All the time. Sometimes when I was told to go brush my teeth, I'm talking before I was 10 years old, I pretend like I did, but I didn't. So I ended up with problems, while my brother and my sisters, they had nice teeth. And so when I came to Canada one night, I think I was about 10 and a half years old, I had such a bad toothache. It was driving the whole house crazy with the pain I was in and how I was groaning and moaning. Fortunately, my father and our dentist were good friends, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, lucky me, that dentist went down into his surgery, opened his office, and looked after me. Well, I learned I don't have problems with my teeth anymore. So I've learned. The eyes, I'm still working on it. Very much so. Now, I also mentioned that I died from starvation. And that has caused me to go for hours. So I don't even remember to eat. And if I'm caught up in my work, sometimes when I'm in Jamaica, my staff, they'll come and they'll say, you have not eaten because your breakfast is sitting there. The lunch is sitting there. I just don't remember. And so sometimes they would actually bring me what I need to eat in my office because I just really don't remember to eat. That's not good. You should have regular meals because you have to take care of your body. It is the one vessel that you have to take you through this life. So that is your temple. That's what that means, that your body is your temple. And so I'm learning, I'm trying my best. I'm trying. I don't always succeed, but I'm better than I used to be. So I'm trying. I'm learning. I'm not perfect. Now, there are also calling cards, what I call calling cards, carryovers. And we could call those weaknesses, those weak spots, we can call them carryover illnesses. Infection in the lungs, and you have to take care of your lungs because you're very susceptible to certain things. But injuries and certain illnesses can also be calling cards, relevant in one or other lifetime. Calling cards to make perhaps someone who you're supposed to meet. When you do meet, they will know that is, you are the person. You might have been injured in a leg in another lifetime. Perhaps in a war, something like that, a fall from a horse. And so in this lifetime or in a current lifetime, you're born with a birthmark on that spot, or you re-injure that spot, or sometimes during the year, let's take for example an injury in the leg, sometimes you have a kink in that leg, or certain times during the year, every year, there's something that's just out of whack with that spot. That's a calling card. Now, and do I keep saying now as I go through, what's in a name? And this now is my favorite part. Names are filled with information. They can be powerful, and for some cultures they can serve as protection. We might have an official first name, but are called something else. Not the shortened form of the first name, like you have Anthony, but they call you Tony. How there is no connection, right, between Basil and Aloysius. In some cultures, parents name their children. Well, there's a name that you call that child just regularly, and there's another name on the birth certificate. And some people believe that will trick spirits when they want to hurt you because they won't really know your real name. Right? So, malevolent spirits will not know your real name. Well, knowing the spiritual realm, and as a shaman, that doesn't hold water. Spirits, believe me, they will know your real name. Trust me, they will. Now, names show where we come from. Do we come from the mountains? Do we come from the dales? So we name Daly. Do we come from Wales? Walsh. Surname. Fathered by or sired by. Who our father is. So you have in Russian what they call the patronymic. Son of Ivan, Ivanovich. Daughter of Ivan, Ivanova. Son of Peter, Petrovich. Daughter of Peter, Petrovna. Son of Wilson. And take Mauritania. Now that's a country in Northwest Africa, just below Morocco. They use for son, Ould. So, Salem, Ould Ahmed. And they use Bint, which is used throughout, I believe in most places, throughout North Africa and into Saudi, the Gulf regions. Yasmin bint Mukhtar. Profession, parson, parsons. Fisherman, right? Smith, one of the smiths, like were you a blacksmith or whatever. And of course, were you a forger, forger. Now, you have the L and the L's that tells where you're from, in Spanish and in the Middle East, okay? So, now, we often choose our names, believe it or not, when we come into a lifetime. The names might tell what we will do in this lifetime or did in others, and our personalities and character traits, or tell the history of the lifetimes that are relevant to this karmic journey. The time period of that or those relevant lifetimes, our skill set, our health, our fears, our likes, our phobia, and what we should do. Now I'm going to use my name, and then I'm going to use a very loaded male name. And I will continue because I don't want this to run over 1 hour. I just want them in 1 hour time slot, not like 2 hours like the first one. So I'm going to end it here. And then when we come back, and I'll be back, it's almost 5 a.m. I'm on a roll. Then we're going to get into some really exciting things.